A history of aristocracy is strongly woven around the busy streets and tall skyscrapers of central London. For many people, the Grosvenor family name means wealth and power. They run a kingdom that covers some of the city's most prestigious areas. They had a massive impact on everything from the ancient wealth of Mayfair to the beautiful squares of Belgravia. But how did this one family get to own such a large part of one of the most valuable towns in the world? As we go back, the Grosvenor family history is more than just a story of money and titles. It also shows how Britain's upper class lives. The Grosvenor family has a long history in England that goes back almost 1,000 years. Gilbert le Grosvenor, who came to England with William the Conqueror around 1066, is at the root of the family tree. After a long time, the Grosvenors finally got more land and power. By the beginning of the 1440s, they had built a large house in Eton, Cheshire. In the late 16th century, especially in the 1580s, the family began diversifying their investments by buying coal, stone, and lead mines in Denbighshire and Flintshire. This was the start of their financial growth through resource extraction. However, the 1640s were hard on the family's finances because they had to back the king during the English Civil War, which used up a lot of their money. Even with these problems, the Grosvenors could keep and grow their power. 1677, a major event in the family's past occurred after Sir Thomas Grosvenor married Mary Davis. Mary, born to a scrivener, came with a large dowry that included the Ebury farm west of the City of London. Her great-grandfather Hugh Audley bought this land with pasture, fields, and marsh areas. Over the next few hundred years, the Grosvenor family built up the Ebury estate, which included parts of Mayfair and Belgravia, which are now some of the world's most expensive real estate. The family didn't just do business in London. Their land management and development knowledge helped them start one of the few foreign property companies in the world, which grew their holdings across borders and continents. The early signs of the Industrial Revolution and a booming trade in goods gave London the drive to rebuild with glory and ambition. As the economy of the country grew, there was a push for growth outside of the crowded and disease-prone city centre. This caused new neighbourhoods to form in what was then called the Wild West End. One of these new towns was Mayfair, which got its name from a spring fair that started in the 1500s and moved to the area in the late 1700s. Real progress in building up Mayfair started in earnest in 1720, when the Grosvenor family took over. They made a grid of wide, straight streets that is still mostly there today. Grosvenor Square, which was going to become London's second largest garden square after Lincoln's Inn, was at the centre of this new neighbourhood. Mayfair was successful not only because of how it was planned, but also because of the high quality and skill of the buildings there, as well as the fact that it was close to the Court of St. James and the royal parks. As a result of these factors, Mayfair became a very popular place for the capital's elite to live. Over the years, the area has changed from being a place where tradesmen like lacers, chandlers, and coach builders lived and worked, to a place with more trendy shops and services that met the needs and wants of each new generation. Once the Napoleonic Wars were over, in 1815, London began to grow quickly. By the end of the 1800s, it was on track to become the biggest city in the world. During this time of fast growth, many people, including the Grosvenor family, built large cities. Robert Grosvenor, who was going to be the first Marquess of Westminster soon, saw a chance to build on land southwest of Mayfair in the 1820s. This place was near Buckingham House, which was being changed into Buckingham Palace for King George IV. It was between Hyde Park and the River Thames. It was planned that the growth of Belgravia would go well with this royal neighbourhood. Robert Grosvenor hired Thomas Cundy and his son as architects and surveyors, as well as their master builder Thomas Gilbert, who was known for being very skilled and creative. They worked together to create Belgravia, a stylish new neighborhood that embodied the Regency style. The area had many types of houses: garden squares, streets, and crescents. They were all put out in a more elegant and cohesive way than anything seen in central London before. This area was changed into Pimlico, a new neighborhood that Gilbert also planned. People from the middle class mostly lived in Pimlico, which was built around a grid of pretty houses in the Regency style. Belgravia quickly became one of the most sought-after addresses in the city, attracting famous people from politics, science, and the arts. Blue plaques were put up all over the area to honor its many famous people. After the Second World War, many offices and other important institutions chose to move to Belgravia. Because it is close to the Houses of Parliament, Pimlico, on the other hand, became a centre for business and politics. In the late 1800s, it became famous for a number of charitable housing projects that were paid for by the Grosvenor family and were meant to provide good, cheap homes. Today, most of the original design of Belgravia and Pimlico's buildings has been kept, showing how Gilbert and his followers saw them. The consistent use of stucco, brick, slate, and painted wood in the building shows that these developments are based on a long-lasting aesthetic and practical philosophy. The Grosvenor family sold their Pimlico property in the early 1950s, but Belgravia is still a big part of their London land. These areas are known for their outstanding architectural and historical value, as they have over 1,500 listed buildings, including 50 of Grade 1 status. The Grosvenor family showed their concern for social safety in 1924 by renting land in Pimlico for a very small amount of money. This project made it possible for about 300 people to build homes, meeting the immediate need for affordable housing. This act became even more meaningful after the Great Flood of 1928, which did a lot of damage in Millbank and other places. In reaction to this disaster, the second Duke of Westminster and the Mayor of Westminster gave 5 acres of land to the city, along with a large amount of money to help build new homes for working-class people. Besides that, he gave protected tenants a yearly grant to make sure that their rents stayed at the same level. Even after many years, the 6th Duke of Westminster kept up this dedication to affordable housing. He was very important in a famous court case against Westminster Council in 1990, where he successfully fought the council's plan to sell off these socially rented houses. Even with these charitable efforts, the 1950s were a time of big changes for the Grosvenor lands in Pimlico. By 1952, they had sold off most of their land in the area, which added up to 66 acres. In the 1920s and 1930s, other high-class buildings such as Claridge's and the former Grosvenor House, which is now the Grosvenor House Hotel, were sold one at a time as part of a larger plan. This cautious approach to selling assets was planned to keep the market from falling and to get ready financially for the death fees that would be due after the second Duke of Westminster died. As the middle of the 20th century approached, the Grosvenor dynasty began to reshape its legacy with a bold move toward global expansion. This marked a significant departure from their traditional focus on UK properties, signaling the start of a modern era for the family, by acquiring Annacis Island in Vancouver, Canada. By 1955, this investment had transformed into Canada's first industrial park. This initial venture outside of Britain was soon followed by further expansions, particularly into the United States, marking the beginning of the Grosvenor Group's broader trading activities beyond British shores. In the 1960s, Grosvenor's foreign reach grew to Australia. By the 1990s, they had moved into the Asia-Pacific region, building major projects in Tokyo and Hong Kong. They kept developing new ideas in their home country along with their global growth. In the UK, the Grosvenor Group built one of Chester's first covered shopping centres in 1965. This building began the Great Liverpool One shopping area, which opened in 2008 and changed the whole city centre of Liverpool. During these changes, the Grosvenor Group kept focused on high standards and new ideas in order to make things better for business, society, and the environment. They thought this way to make sure that their projects didn't just make towns look better, but also met bigger needs in society, like making homes more affordable and raising people's standard of living. With their wealth, the Grosvenor Group has built a huge business company that spans the globe. This shows how important they are in the world's real estate market. They are very powerful in London, where they own a lot of land in Mayfair and Belgravia. A few of the well-known buildings they own are the American Embassy, the Beaumont Hotel, and the Gagosian Gallery. In the UK, the Eton Estate in Cheshire and the Abbeystead Estate in Lancashire show how the noble British used to live. These places are connected to the family's past, but they also have farms in Scotland and even Spain, so they do business all over the world. The Grosvenor Group also played a big role in changing the centre of Liverpool. This shows how much of an effect they have on revitalising cities. The way they do business around the world is very different. They own a neighbourhood centre in Tokyo, a shopping centre in Stockholm, a lot of land in Silicon Valley, and the whole island of Annecy, which is close to Vancouver. They are spread out physically, and each of these properties shows that. It also shows how they run and grow their real estate business by mixing old and new properties. Because it owns so many properties, the Grosvenor Group is known for its big real estate business and charitable work, but it has also encountered problems using banks in other countries. A lot of financial documents were leaked in 2017 and called the Paradise Papers. They showed that the Grosvenor estate had used companies in other countries to handle some of its assets. People became more aware of and critical of tax methods because of this. Some of these clues showed that the Grosvenor family had used trusts to manage their assets in the past, some outside Britain. Most of the time, people set up these types of trusts to make sure that valuable things would be passed down from one generation to the next and stay in the family. There were arguments about whether taxes should be fair, though, because some stories said these deals could have been used to lower tax bills. Some people are against foreign trusts because they believe that even though they are legal, they could make wealth inequality worse by letting rich people pay less in taxes. People want the rich and businesses to pay their taxes in a more open and fair way, which makes this criticism greater. As an explanation, the Grosvenor Group said that the trusts are just a small part of how they handle assets, and that they do everything they need to do to make sure that taxpayers do not lose out because of how they set up their finances. When the money from these trusts comes into the UK, it is taxed at the highest rates. This was made clear. The estate also made it clear that the trusts are used to protect the assets for the long run, not to make money quickly. This lets them focus on improvement and growth over the long run. Hugh Richard Louis Grosvenor became the 7th Duke of Westminster when his father, Gerald Grosvenor, died in 2016. He was 25 years old at the time. Hugh came from a wealthy and noble family. He inherited both the family title and the Grosvenor estate, which has been a major source of the family's wealth for many generations. Hugh Grosvenor went to Newcastle University and studied countryside management. This may have been because he was interested in managing the huge estates he would eventually receive from his father. Before he became Duke, he worked at the BioBean, a company that turned used coffee grounds into energy. This shows that he was interested in environmentally friendly methods. Hugh has important ties to the British royal family. As Prince George's uncle, he is very close to several members of the royal family and keeps in touch with other royals on a personal level. These ties show how the British upper class and the royal family are connected. They also show Hugh's social duties and the groups he is a part of. Hugh is known for staying out of the public eye, even though he is very wealthy and has ties with important people. When it comes to his wealth and his job as Duke, he focuses on urban planning and protecting the environment, especially the green areas and unique character of the cities his family owns. There is a modern aristocrat who respects his history while also dealing with modern problems. This is shown by his historical wealth, his modern social connections, and his environmentally friendly and estate management ideas. As of 2024, Hugh Grosvenor's net worth is £10.1 billion, making him one of the richest people in the UK under the age of 40. He inherited the Grosvenor estate, which has large holdings in Mayfair and Belgravia, two of London's most famous neighbourhoods, and gained most of his huge wealth. The Grosvenor estate includes more than 300 acres in Mayfair and Belgravia, known for having expensive homes. It was given to Hugh Grosvenor after his father, Gerald Grosvenor, the 6th Duke, died suddenly in 2016. In addition to these high-end properties in London, Hugh Grosvenor is in charge of a huge portfolio that includes farms in rural areas across the UK and homes in more than 60 countries. Additionally, Hugh Grosvenor's personal ties make him even more well-known. He is the uncle of Prince George, which shows how close he is to the British royal family. He is very wealthy and well known, but he is said to prefer a simpler, less showy life. This is clear from the fact that he moved out of London to focus on living in the country and his commitment to environmental and sustainable causes. Without question, the Grosvenor family has left an indelible mark on London. The Duke of Westminster stands for a lot of money, experience, and power that go back hundreds of years. He owns huge pieces of some of the world's most famous land. There are notable roots in the Grosvenor family story, but scandals and charitable work in the present show how wealth and power can change the course of a city's history. What do you think? Feel free to say what you think and join the chat below, and see you in the next video.